cabin crew member ejected a black family from an aircraft, only to discover later that the father controlled the airline. Her stunned response was unforgettable. Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport buzzed with the typical pre-departure frenzy. Loudspeakers blaring updates, passengers hurrying to their gates, and airline staff gliding through with practiced calm. At Gate 12, Nathan and Simone Reynolds waited with their children, Jaden and Ava, observing the boarding line form. They weren't pressed for time since first class hadn't been called yet, and years of travel had honed their knack for staying unruffled. Nathan, clad in a gray sweatshirt and black joggers, flicked through his phone while Simone fixed Ava's small backpack. 7-year-old Ava's fascination with planes never dimmed. Jaden, 9, stayed glued to his Nintendo Switch. This vacation promised a week of peace on Maui's shores, a respite from endless work calls and tech conferences. As boarding preparations hummed along, Jessica Barnes, a seasoned flight attendant with a decade under her belt, stepped up to the desk. She smoothed her sharp blazer, exuding seasoned poise, and cast her eyes toward the priority queue taking shape. Spotting the Reynolds family, her face held steady, though a hint of doubt, or perhaps mild shock, flashed briefly. Nathan caught her gaze as he looked up. It wasn't quite a stare, but it felt off enough. He swapped a swift glance with Simone, who noticed it too, though they brushed it aside. Priority boarding was announced, and Nathan, clutching their first-class passes, took Ava's hand to step forward. Jessica, now posted by the jet bridge entry, eyed them as they neared. "Excuse me, sir," she interjected, blocking their path. "This is strictly for first class." Nathan paused. "I'm aware," he replied, displaying their tickets. "We're in 2A and 2B. Jessica faltered momentarily, then flashed a stiff smile. "Oh, certainly," she said, moving aside, but her voice carried an edge, a subtle disbelief. Simone spotted a quick shift in Jessica's expression, a silent query, a muted suspicion, but let it go. They just wanted to board, relax, and savor the journey. Yet Jessica wasn't ready to drop it. A nagging thought whispered they didn't fit here, setting the stage for trouble. American Horizon Flight 227's first-class section gleamed with elegance and roominess, a plush haven that turned lengthy trips into something bearable. Think cushy recliners, attentive service, and a tailored menu, the fruits of Nathan and Simone's relentless efforts. Ava scrambled into her spot, her small hands exploring the armrest controls. "Mommy, see, my seat moves," she chirped. Jaden, eyes barely lifting from his game, mumbled, "Neat." Simone smiled, leaning over to tweak Ava's chair, cherishing how these little thrills lit up her kids and nudged her to treasure the moment. Nathan, unfazed by the earlier odd exchange, took it in stride. He'd faced plenty of sidelong glances, assumptions, and doubts about his place, but he refused to let it spoil their escape. Meanwhile, Jessica Barnes kept her watch. She weaved through the cabin, tending to other travelers, yet her eyes flicked back to 2A and 2B now and then. Something gnawed at her. She couldn't pin it down, but her seasoned instincts screamed that this didn't add up. They lacked the typical first-class polish. No sleek suitcases, no tailored suits, no air of understated privilege. The dad sported a hoodie, the mom wore a tasteful but plain dress. Nothing showy. Their children acted like, well, kids, chatty and lively, and their ease, their natural comfort, struck her as too relaxed, as if they genuinely believed they belonged. Jessica's lips tightened as she drifted to the front, where Megan, another crew member, prepped the beverage trolley. "Hey," Jessica murmured under her breath. "Did you verify that family's passes when they boarded?" Megan looked up. "The ones in 2A and 2B? Jessica gave a curt nod. "Yeah, they're good," Megan answered, unscrewing a sparkling water bottle. "What's up?" Jessica paused, aware her next words might sound off, but her gut pushed her. "No big deal," she said, forcing a grin, just double-checking. But she wasn't finished digging. Minutes later, with the cabin settling, she strode back to 2A and 2B, this time with a sharper edge. She halted beside Nathan and Simone, offering a polite yet taut smile. "Sir, ma'am," she said evenly, "I'll need to check your tickets again." Nathan lifted his gaze slowly, his face blank. "Why?" Jessica didn't miss a beat. "Standard procedure." Simone's brow creased. "But we scanned them at the gate." Jessica's smile held firm. "I get that, ma'am, but errors slip through sometimes." Nathan let out a slow breath, dug into his pocket, and pulled out his phone. A few swipes later, their digital passes glowed on the screen. He angled it toward her. 2A and 2B, he said, steady but firm, like I told you. Jessica gave it a fleeting look before retreating a step. Thank you, she replied, her voice curt. She turned away, but a persistent itch lingered. She needed a better reason, something to justify her unease. Then, right on time, Ava handed Jessica the perfect opening. Still enchanted by her seat, the little girl pressed a button too forcefully, sending her tray table popping out with a sharp thud. It jolted an elderly man across the aisle, who glanced over briefly before returning to his paper. Jessica whipped around, her jaw clenching. This was her chance, the excuse she'd been craving. She squared her stance, drew a breath, and marched back. She loomed beside 2A and 2B, hands clasped like a stern headmaster ready to reprimand. Peering down at Ava, still captivated by the tray, she spoke. I'm sorry, Jessica said, her tone slick yet resolute, but I'll need you to rein in your kids. This is first class. We expect a level of behavior here. Nathan glanced up, brows lifting slightly. Excuse me? Jessica's smile didn't budge, but her voice carried a bite. It's about safety. If she keeps messing with the seat, she might damage the plane. Simone's lips parted, hovering between bewilderment and annoyance. She's just thrilled. She's not bothering anybody. Jessica crossed her arms. Even so, we've got to keep this comfortable for everyone. She scanned the cabin, as if awaiting support, but no one seemed ruffled. Ava, picking up the strain, shrank into her seat, clutching her stuffed bunny tight. Nathan breathed out steadily, holding his cool. Look, we're sitting here, sticking to the same rules as everyone. So what's the real issue? Jessica's jaw stiffened. She wasn't used to pushback like this. I'll need you to keep it down, she said, though Nathan and Simone hadn't raised their voices. You're disturbing others. Simone let out a sharp scoff, folding her arms. Us disturbing? Nathan rubbed his temple, striving for calm. All right, let's clear this up. We paid for these seats. We're sitting quietly, my daughter's 7, and now we're suddenly trouble. Jessica drew herself up. This was the resistance she'd anticipated, the kind she pegged as smug, combative, rule-dodging. I'm sorry, sir, she said, her tone icy and distant, but I'll have to ask you to go back to your economy seats. Silence hit. Nathan blinked. Simone's mouth opened, speechless, the air seeming to vanish from the cabin. Even Jaden, lost in his game till now, looked up. What? Simone whispered, barely audible. Jessica didn't waver. This area is for first class. If you're mixed up about your spots, I can help. Nathan cut in, his voice still level but edged with steel. We are first class. Jessica stood firm. Nathan flashed his phone again, the same passes she'd seen, 2A and 2B. So if there's a problem, he said, clipped, check your system, not us. Jessica's smile twitched for a split second. She hadn't expected that, but instead of relenting, she dug in. You'll need to leave the plane to sort this out. Simone let out a dry laugh, shaking her head. You've got to be joking. Jessica pivoted to a crew member by the cockpit. Can we get security up here? 2 airport security guards stepped onto the plane, one a towering, rigid figure with broad shoulders, the other younger, his face hinting at regret. Jessica faced them, arms crossed. They're not following orders, she stated smoothly. They're in the wrong seats and stirring trouble. The younger guard darted a look at Nathan and Simone. They hardly seemed disruptive, more like typical first-class folks, just a touch irritated. Nathan leaned in. Let me get this clear. You're tossing us off this flight in front of our kids because you figure we don't fit here? Jessica tilted her head. Sir, please stay calm. Simone let out a sharp, bitter chuckle. Calm? You've been on us since we stepped aboard. Jessica turned to the guards, sighing theatrically. I've tried settling this, but they won't cooperate. I can't hold up the flight for everyone else. The taller guard, visibly weary of the standoff, addressed Nathan. Sir, you'll need to come with us. Nathan locked eyes with him, breath steady for a beat. Simone half expected him to resist, and she wouldn't have faulted him. But then he rose slowly. Simone stood too, shaking her head in disbelief. Jaden tucked his switch into his bag silently, while Ava, eyes brimming with tears, gripped her bunny tighter. Passengers watched in strained quiet as the Reynolds family collected their belongings, moving down the aisle, chins up. Nathan cast a final glance at Jessica. She smirked, savoring some imagined victory. But she had no clue, no inkling, that she'd just blundered massively. The man she'd ousted didn't just book first class. He owned the whole airline. As Nathan, Simone, and their kids crossed into the terminal, the air grew heavy. Not from dampness, but from raw shame. Ava swiped at her teary eyes, bewildered and rattled. Jaden, usually unfazed, stared at the floor, jaw locked. Simone seethed. "I swear, Nathan, if you don't speak up." Nathan exhaled hard, pressing a hand to his brow. He wasn't one for scenes, never had been, but this pushed past anything he'd stomach. Before he could reply, whispers stirred. Gate staff muttered, and a few onlookers from the flight lingered nearby. Some shook their heads, others pulled out phones. A middle-aged woman, concern etching her face, edged toward Simone. "I saw it all," she said softly. "That was unfair. Should I call someone, get a statement down?" Simone gave a tense smile, grateful, but certain this wouldn't end with security or a viral clip. This was bigger. Nearby, a young guy in a navy suit hustled over, pale-faced, his badge glinting as he fumbled with his tie, eyes bouncing between Nathan and the plane's crew. "Mr. Reynolds?" he ventured warily. Nathan turned, face unreadable. "I'm Daniel Ross, Customer Relations Director," the man blurted, voice tight with nerves. "I just heard about this. Can we step aside for a sec?" Nathan didn't budge. "Hold on," Simone cut in, arms folded. "Do you even realize who my husband is?" Daniel gulped. He knew exactly, and that's why sweat beaded on his forehead. Nathan wasn't just any passenger. He held a massive stake in the airline. Months earlier, American Horizon Airlines had trumpeted a deal with Reynolds Innovations, Nathan's billion-dollar tech empire, billing it as a bold move for diversity and leadership, complete with interviews, press shots, and the CEO gripping Nathan's hand. Now, one of their own crew had booted him off a flight. Jessica Barnes had no idea she'd just shamed the company at its peak, and the frantic bustle by the gate showed the brass were just catching on to the chaos. Daniel cleared his throat. "Mr. Reynolds, I deeply regret what happened. This doesn't reflect our airline's standards." Nathan raised a hand, halting him. "You heard about it," he said, voice even. "So, what'd they tell you?" Daniel faltered, caught off guard. "I was told there was a mix-up with your seats, and—" Simone snorted. "A mix-up?" Nathan shook his head, lips tight. "Let's be straight. I don't want your rehearsed company line. I want answers." Daniel's throat bobbed. "Of course, sir, no question. The attendant involved will—" Nathan interrupted. "Get her out here." Daniel blinked. "Sir?" "You heard me," Nathan pressed. "Bring her here." Daniel's hands fidgeted, hesitating, but Nathan's steady stare made it clear. This wasn't optional. "Yes, sir," he mumbled, stumbling off toward the jet bridge. Simone let out a breath, eyeing her husband. "You sure about this?" Nathan didn't answer right away, but in his head he knew the play. Jessica Barnes was about to face the fallout of her choices. Jessica Barnes lingered near the plane's front, sipping water from a tiny cup, utterly at ease. In her mind, she'd done her duty. Passengers had rules to follow, and if they didn't belong, she handled it. She dealt with their kind before, testing boundaries, acting above the system. Not personal, she told herself. But when Daniel Ross approached, his face ghostly pale, her stomach sank. "What's up?" she asked, straightening. He didn't reply, just nodded toward the exit, motioning her out. Jessica's brows knit, but she followed, smoothing her blazer as she left the aircraft. Then she saw them. Nathan and Simone Reynolds standing there, waiting. Her breath caught. The kids were gone, likely whisked to a calmer spot, but Nathan's expression was blank, unreadable. Simone, arms crossed, stared right through her. Their presence, paired with Daniel hovering like a man awaiting disaster, sent a shiver down her spine. She knew instantly something was horribly off. "Jessica," Daniel began, voice strained, "this is Mr. Nathan Reynolds." She blinked. "Okay," Simone huffed, shaking her head. Daniel's fingers twitched, resisting a nervous tick. "Nathan Reynolds, the guy with a controlling share in this airline." Jessica went rigid, her breath snagging painfully. Nathan let the quiet stretch, giving her space to feel those words sink in, then spoke. "I'll give you one shot to explain." Her pulse hammered. I was just doing my job," she stumbled. "There was a seating mix-up, and Nathan tilted his head faintly. "A mix-up?" Jessica swallowed hard. "I thought they didn't belong there." Simone's eyes narrowed. "Even after we showed our tickets?" Jessica's mouth opened, but no sound came. Daniel sighed through his nose, already dreading the cleanup. Nathan stepped closer. "Tell me, Miss Barnes, what about my family?" Screamed. "We didn't fit in first class." Her throat closed up. It was the question she couldn't dodge. the truth weighing like a boulder in her gut. Nathan let her stew in that silence a beat, then pressed on. "You had chances to back off," he said, voice steady, "at the gate with our tickets. Then again when you called security, but you doubled down. You shamed my wife, degraded my kids, turned a simple moment into a circus." Jessica's fingers dug into her palms. Daniel cut in, clearing his throat. "Mr. Reynolds, we'll take disciplinary steps." Nathan lifted a hand. "No need, I know how this ends." Jessica's stomach lurched. He turned to her. "You're done as of now." She reeled. "Wait. Your badge," he said. "Hand it over." Jessica froze, eyes darting between him and Daniel, expecting a rescue, but Daniel stayed still, knowing better. Her face burned as she unpinned her airline badge with trembling hands, dropping it into Nathan's open palm. It was finished. She'd ousted a billionaire from his own airline and now faced walking out jobless. "Make sure this never repeats," Nathan told Daniel. "Understood, sir," Daniel nodded. Jessica, numb, stepped back. Nathan gave her a final look. "Next time you size someone up by their looks, think harder." Her throat locked, speechless. For once in her career, she held no power. Jessica Barnes stumbled out of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, dazed, hands shaking as they clutched her purse strap. An hour ago, a top-flight attendant, now nothing. No payout, no soft exit, just the brutal truth of a career torched in minutes over a dumb hunch. Back in the terminal, Nathan and Simone sat in a private lounge with their kids, awaiting the airline CEO's personal call. Jaden sat silent, staring at his juice box. Ava, still rattled, clung to Simone. Nathan rubbed his temples. He'd built his empire twice as hard, proving himself where he wasn't expected. Yet one attendant had wiped that away in a flash, seeing only a guy in a hoodie unfit for first class. Simone sighed, watching him. "What's on your mind?" "That no matter what we accomplish," he breathed, "we'll still hit folks like her." She squeezed his hand. "But she lost this round." He nodded, glancing at his kids. "Yeah, she did." Soon, Daniel returned, visibly lighter. "Mr. Reynolds, the CEO's set you up on our private jet to Maui, no charge." Nathan eyed him. "And," Daniel swallowed, "we're reviewing all crew training. This won't happen again." Nathan leaned back. "Good. Not the perks, but the shift. That's what mattered, real accountability." He looked at his kids, Ava's innocence, Jaden's quiet fury, then at Daniel. "Tell your CEO this isn't about apologies," he said firmly. "It's about every black family boarding your planes getting equal respect." "Understood, sir," Daniel replied fast. Nathan exhaled, turning to Simone. "Let's go." As they rose, Ava slipped her small hand into his. "Daddy," she whispered. "Yeah, baby? We still going to Hawaii?" He smiled down. "Yeah, baby girl, we are. No one, not even Jessica Barnes, can stop that. It's simple to judge by looks, to assume, but ask yourself, what if you're off? The ones you dismiss might just flip your world. What would you do here? Ever seen or faced this? Drop it in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life tales that demand a voice.